Everybody, thank you so much for coming. I know that we have a couple of people in here. If you will go ahead and we use the chat. We're big chatty chat.
Love it.
And so if you'll go ahead and put where you're from in the chat, that would be fantastic. We will practice and model. So I am from sunny Roanoke. JJ, you just assume people know where Greensboro is.
Oh, sorry, Natalie. Let me fix it. Hold on.
People here.
Sunny Row. Oh, you put Virginia as well.
Yeah, typically we don't just use states.
Okay. I mean, I assumed everybody knew where Greensboro was.
Minneapolis. No, I don't know why you would assume that. Raleigh, maybe when they were in elementary school and middle school, they learned their state capitals.
There I am, North Carolina.
Los Angeles.
I'm hoping there. Yeah, that's pretty weather. Vancouver, I know
Vancouver.
where that is.
Yeah, Vancouver's like Prince. You can just put Vancouver, like done. You can do that. I like how you didn't even still follow instructions. You're like, oh, North Carolina.
You know, they know it's me and they know I got in trouble right off the bat. And I would like to know if anyone else has a sister that also you get in trouble with a lot, because if you have a bossy sister, you could raise your hand.
Oh, that is so sweet.
Look at all those poor people. Yeah, like me.
They're all raising their hands right now. I know we're going to wait. I think we're going to wait 3 more minutes as people are jumping in. Oh, Tucson. Thank you.
Yeah.
Your mom lives in Carson. Oh, Carson, California. I love the California people. Like, I can tell you we're on the East Coast. So JJ's in North Carolina. I'm in Virginia. And we're 3 hours ahead, of course. And these 3 hours have been fine. So you guys are good to go on the back end. Just FYI. If you're joining in, we'd love for you to use the chat and tell us where you're from. It makes it much more fun and then makes all our commentary. I wish we had music, but we just joined when you guys joined. And I love music.
We usually are dancing when we start a session. So we would encourage anybody to come and dance with us in the future, Nat. I mean, do you want to tell them that I'm not in a hostage situation today? It's kind of, is that what it looks like today? I have a bad background.
So JJ's just blurred. Everybody gets
I'm sorry.
Portland. This is my dog Daisy. Normally she's in here, but she's not for right now.
All right, Natalie, it's like a 1-minute timer.
We're gonna do 60 more seconds so people can mosey on over.
All right.
You never know. People might need to pee. And
in between, that's true. That's very true.
It's mostly people needing to pee because we never schedule pee breaks well. So
never happens.
Think about. Oh my gosh. Oh, look, there's Carlos. Oh my God, I love you, Carlos.
No.
Look at Carlos. I knew he'd. Hey, everybody. Carlos has been on our podcast before. We love him. He's our honorary brother.
Yep.
He is our brother. Oh, look at all the people now. Now we're winning. Now we're feeling better about ourselves.
Everybody had to take that pee break.
Hey, Carlos, look, you turned your camera on. Look at your stash. That's awesome.
You like that, huh?
I mean, it's fantastic.
Boom.
I want to braid it.
Nice.
That would be, yes.
I'm going to start a new trend.
Trendy, yes.
All right, guys, if you haven't put where you're from in the chat yet, would love for you to do so. JJ and I are going to go ahead and get started. Jay, if you would like to share your screen.
I would love to share my screen. You know that I'm so great at this right off the bat, Nat, so I'll get right to it. Hold on just 1 second.
And so while JJ's doing that, really excited to be here. This is the Reluctant Caregiving Training. This is almost like when they do the airlines, when they're like, if you're not going to Texas, you should leave this plane. But JJ and I are super excited to get to be with you guys today. We're going to be sharing a lot about our own personal experience. And for this training, we're really leaning into caregivers. Oh, you're nailing it.
Great.
Yeah, I see that.
Is it up now?
Now it's great. Now you're doing it well.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos.
Laundry. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. I see Carlos cheering me on. Thank you, Carlos.
All right. So, hey guys, as you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. we are going to be asking you guys questions that engage you guys, because it would just be boring to sit here and listen to only us. So we learn from one another. And the one thing that we do know about caregiving is caregivers are each other our greatest resources. And so my name is Natalie Elliott Handy. It's funny that my name is listed first, but I'm the middle sister. So you can clearly tell that JJ is.
I'm the oldest sister. I knew you were going to throw me under the bus right off the bat. So I am JJ Elliott Hill, and I am the oldest sister of the reluctant caregivers. And we're so glad you guys are here with us today.
And so I do want to jump in real quick. And sometimes we talk a little bit. We'll try not to talk over each other. My background is 25 years working in the mental health field. And we'll tell you about how we got to be caregivers as part of the presentation. But 25 years working in the mental health field, working primarily with children and families. And so I am fluent in mental health. And JJ, would you like to talk a little bit about your background? You're on mute. Oh my God. Hold on, guys. I got you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry.
Please don't put yourself on mute.
I no mute. Sorry, Carlos. Okay. So my background is almost 20 years in personal finance and finance for different commercial businesses. So I did that in banking industry. I got tired of it, decided I wanted to go out on business by myself. And that was great. And now I feel like I'm doing a really great job with financing in the healthcare industry, because I feel like that's all I do in caregiving is try and figure out ways to finance healthcare and assisted living and medicine and all that kind of stuff. So that's my background.
Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get started about what we're going to talk about today.
All right. So as you all know, you came to this class, it is about reluctant caregiving. And we're going to talk about what is reluctant caregiving, because it's not what you think. It's not necessarily a negative thing when you hear that word. We're going to talk about the impact of caregiving. It's a personal impact, it's a professional impact, and it's kind of everything in between. We're going to hopefully teach everybody how to find balance, kind of balance on the high wire. We're going to talk about strategies too, which is one of my favorite, most helpful things, because I definitely need to strategize. And then we're going to empower you through resources, and get ready, because we're going to ask you for your favorite resources as well.
Absolutely. All right. So I love this slide. And caregiving is personal. And I think that's really important that we all remember. It all started when, for me, was, and the caregiving journey started when my husband, and it seems very apropos that my husband 3 years ago today was diagnosed with a head and neck cancer. And so today is a very meaningful day for he and I. He had been ill for months and had these lumps in his neck, actually. And the doctors misdiagnosed him for over 9 months. And that's my husband, Jason. And so we ended up choosing to leave Virginia. I am from Virginia, so is Jason. JJ and I are originally from Tennessee. That's where we were born and raised. And went to school here in Virginia, and I stayed. And so when Jason and I were faced with this decision to stay for treatment here in Southwest Virginia, which is more rural, and while they have good medical care, we did not feel as confident in the care and the advice that we were being given. And so we took the time to take a second opinion. I always encourage people on the podcast as well to always seek out a second opinion, because you just want to know what you're doing is the right thing. And then when you find those doctors, you want to feel confident and you want to trust, because it's our lives that are in their hands, and that is no small thing. And so Jason and I got a second opinion in New York. We ended up staying in New York. We moved there for over 2 months, and that's where he was eligible for a clinical trial. The clinical trial assumed that they were over-treating head and neck cancer patients, And I am so grateful we did, because he only had to receive half of the radiation and the chemotherapy. And the last picture, which always makes me tear up, that last picture is a year after his active treatment. We were invited to go to a screening of a caregiving documentary by Richard Louis, and he looks fantastic. Now, mind you, he has all the side effects that you can't see from having his head radiated, but little did I realize, I did not realize I was a caregiver, honestly, until after we came back from New York. And I couldn't figure out why. I was having these feelings. I felt depressed and I felt overwhelmed. And what I didn't realize is I was experiencing caregiver grief for a life lost. And I talk about that now a lot more. And that's when I said to my sisters, I was like, I can't figure out what's wrong with me, and I can't get back into my groove. And I was doing fine, because I felt like I was on a bipolar high the whole time that we were in New York. I was doing everything, and I continued to work the whole time. I did not take time off. I took intermittent FMLA. And that's when I heard the term caregiver and really looked at the definition of caregiver and said, holy cow, I think I'm a caregiver to my sisters. And I said it to JJ and Emily, who is our younger sister, and they were like, well, gosh, I think we're caregivers too, because it didn't really start with us. Oh, Jay.
Goodness gracious.
Oh my God, Jay, what are you doing? Oh my,
I don't know. It went crazy.
Man down.
I'm sorry.
Man
down.
Yeah, sorry about
so
that.
here is when it really started. And when Natalie came to us and said, I think I'm a caregiver, we all were like, wait a minute, maybe we are caregivers. So our story really started with who we refer to as Connie and Jimmy, and those are our parents. They were high school sweethearts, and they're married almost 40 years. And you can check out those shameless cutie kid photos on the right. That's me, Natalie, and Emily. And we're, as Natalie says, thick as thieves. When we were younger, and we always have been, we're 2 years apart. And Mom was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's at 48. And our plan in our family, first of all, we say we're from the South, and you don't talk about money or anything really private out in public. You just don't talk about it. It's very impolite. But the plan was that our dad would always take care of our mom, and there was never anything else that would occur. That was the plan. And our dad passed away of a massive heart attack at the age of 58. He was fine one day, went to play softball, and passed away during the game. And at that moment, these three daughters became caregivers. We were all in our 30s. Our mom at that time was 57, and she was doing well. I say that in that she didn't want us to be caregivers. She was very independent, and she would take her own medicine. She would do her own thing, and she really didn't want us to be part of caregiving. She was off put by it, and we didn't really necessarily want to be part of caregiving. I got to tell you guys that. We were, and maybe some people feel like that, okay, I'm good. I'll watch you from afar. And I have to tell you, our youngest sister had 3 kids in middle school. Natalie and I lived a state away, and both of us are married. Everyone has careers. And I think that's how it works. You most of the time you don't plan. I mean, you may plan, but we always say there's 3 kinds of caregivers. And Natalie, you can be drafted, you can be recruited, or you can volunteer. We always ask everybody, and I may be asking a little bit early, about how you became a caregiver. So were you drafted, were you recruited, or did you volunteer?
I would love to see you jot that down in the chat.
Jot it down in the chat. And so in 2019, we did become Mom's full-time caregiver. She had an episode. She overdosed on her dopamine medicine, oddly enough, on her Parkinson's medicine. And we all 3 became full-time caregivers for our mom. But when Natalie came to us and she said, I think we're caregivers, we all started looking into it, and we actually realized that we all were caregivers. And so, Natalie?
Yeah. So
what do we do?
Yeah, so thank you for putting responses. I like that, all 5. Because most people aren't one. Thank you, Mike, for putting drafted or volunteered. It really, I felt the same way. So for my husband, I was definitely, it didn't feel like a draft or a volunteer. It was just what I was supposed to do. It was an expectation. So that's why I totally agree with you, Mike, on that drafted / volunteers, because of course you're going to care for your spouse. But the thing is the of course is not what we would come to find out is the standard answer. Of course is not that, because we see over the 100 and now almost 20 podcasts that we've recorded, we hear so many different stories. And so I will say, just taking a step back, I said to my sisters, I was like, there's got to be more people out there who have these thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And again, I'm a social worker. I'm all about finding solutions. And so I said, we should start a podcast. And so the sisters were like, okay, that sounds great. Have you ever done one? And I'm like, no, I've never even listened to one, but I saw this thing on Facebook about learn how to do a podcast from Kathy Heller. And I thought that can't be that hard. We got some degrees. We're smart ladies. And boy, did we not know what we were doing. And so, and then we met our sweet friend Carlos, who's on here, who came on, and he was magical. But I'm going to tell you, we started this podcast to help other people, one, self-identify, because most caregivers don't self-identify. We see our roles as wife, as daughters, as, whatever the role is. And we didn't realize that we had transitioned to caregiving. And a lot of times the role is a dual role. I am wife and caregiver. I am daughter and caregiver to my mom. And I'm also caregiver to my oldest sister, who is the primary, who really is the lead for our mom. So we started a podcast and we wondered if anyone would really listen. And we wondered how many people were out there. We had no clue about the statistics. And then
there's over 100 million of us now. The old statistic everyone is floating around is 53 million. Don't be confused. The new study that just came out is around 105 million of us. So some of us are here in this room. You are a caregiver. So don't be dissuaded. You are a caregiver.
And so, and that was, I want to make sure we reference, that's the RAND study that was put out by the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, and with Rand was the primary on it. And so it also talks about our friends, I think it's 14.3 million who are our military caregivers. And then our friends at the American Association for Youth Caregivers indicate there's about 5.4 million youth caregivers. And here's the thing, and I think we can all agree, no, these numbers are so understated. They're just so understated. And so the thing is that the other thing that we found from the podcast is these stories, this is really how we learn, how we heal. And then we really start talking about caregiving roles and responsibilities. And so we throw this list in here for you guys to consider. And these are just some of the tasks. And we are always going to say, this is a job. Caregiving is a job. You may say, oh, I willingly did it, or I really didn't want to, but nobody else was there, or whatever the reason is and how you got into caregiving. I'm going to tell you, it is a second job. And most of us, I would say 95% of us, do not get paid for it. Okay. If you're a family caregiver, you're not getting paid. If you have the ability to have resource based on your state. That's why I also like asking what states you're in. Some states are very progressive. Other states are not so much. We'd love to see more states, and actually I'd love to see it on a federal level and it trickle down as well to the state level, more resources to support caregivers. Because I'm going to tell you, from a healthcare standpoint, unpaid family caregivers are the backbone that's keeping our healthcare system afloat, without question, because there's not enough staff that are paid to be able to do it. So when you look at some of these jobs, and you feel free to put it in the chat, there are many of these things that I wasn't trained to do related to my husband. Now, I may have been trained to do it because I've provided direct care on the mental health side, but most caregivers don't know care coordination. That's a paid service. Financial, think about your financial planners and things like that. They get paid for this. And medication, and when you're tracking and things like that, there are people who get paid for this. And so I'm going to tell you over and over again, you should respectfully look at this as a job, because I at one point, Jason was getting his hydration after his chemotherapy. And I called that spa services, because hydration sounded so bouge. And it was really, he needed fluids because his body was so, he couldn't consume liquids orally. But, you know, I started writing it down, and that's when I realized I had 40 different jobs at any one time during the day that I might be doing, and wife never felt like one of them. And so that took me a good bit of time to get back into that role. But that's why we want to say, hey guys, this is a job. And if you think, if you work now or have worked in the past, you know the stressors that come with a job. And so if you guys wouldn't mind in the chat, if you work full-time, part-time, whatnot, I'd love for you guys to indicate if you work, or if you are a full-time unpaid caregiver for your loved one and you don't have the ability to work. Because our youngest sister quit her job and took care of our mom, moved from out of state and moved in with our mom to take care of her for 7 months. So let's jump into the next section. I'm watching the chat. Thank you, Carlos. We want to talk about, as we talk about jobs and we talk about the stressors and all that those things, excuse me, related to caregiving. We want to hit on a couple of areas. Jay?
We want to talk about the impact of caregiving, and that's going to be personal, professional, and everything in between. But Natalie, so many times you and I use the word caregiving, and we say that really is kind of reluctance. Yeah. And so it's important to explain, when we say reluctance, what that actually means. And I think Natalie came up with the word reluctance for our podcast name. And I was hesitant at first, I have to tell you, like, that doesn't sound like I want to take care of mom. And that's not what it means. Natalie, what does the reluctance mean?
Well, I'm all about making provocative statements, and the confessions of a reluctant caregiver. The reluctance is completely related to my own feelings of doubt, fear, guilt. I sucked at it as a caregiver, guys. I'm going to tell you right now, I have in my podcast, I talk about it, I'd get frustrated with my husband. He'd get frustrated with me. I've gotten frustrated with my mom. We have said things that we probably wish we hadn't. We've asked for forgiveness and grace. But I mean, typically for me, it was always like, I don't feel like I was doing good enough. And it's honestly one of the reasons I not only kept working, because I was an executive of a healthcare company, so I was very privileged. I know my privilege, and we'll talk about the work side, but I worked because I felt like that was the only thing I was good at. I did not do a great job at times with my husband, because FYI, I can't cook. And my husband had a head and neck cancer. And so nothing he ate, he liked. And so there were things that we did to accommodate to make me feel less bad. Like, we ordered every meal out, because that way, when I had to throw it away, I could be like, he hates you. It's not good. It wasn't me that he didn't like. And I don't know how many of you guys can relate to that, but that was something that was so important. And so the reluctance really does come from our own feelings of doubts and insecurities and all the feelings and emotions.
Yeah. The hot mess that we become.
We are totally a hot mess.
We are a hot mess, Nat. So let's talk about the impact of caregiving. So emotional, physical, and mental challenges. We know we got mental challenges, Nat.
So when you think about the emotions, guys, feel free to jot down some of the more frequent emotions that you feel. I can tell you this, we got down sadness, anger, helplessness, grief. Holy cow, grief is a big deal. We just finished up a 4-part series called Caregivers Playbook, and we talk about grief over and over again, and especially anticipatory grief. That through that grief was how I realized I was a caregiver. And so, because it didn't make sense. Who grieves after their husband's a survivor? Who does that? And why am I grieving now? And so it is very, very common. anger is a true thing. You can get angry at the person that you're caring for. The number of times that, we'd walk in to let the doctors know, give an update on how Jason was doing. And we're good Southerners. And he'd be like, oh, I'm just fine. And he had just vomited, his entire body before we got there. And I'm sitting there like, what? And so I would get frustrated. I got angry at times. I'm pretty sure I was a little snarky with him in front of the physicians, but I'm like, no, we're here to tell the truth. And so it was hard. I agree, Carlos, it was a roller coaster. The physical symptoms, I'm going to tell you, right now, I don't know how many of you all need to touch your shoulders and mentally pull them back down.
Mm-hmm.
And I see Carlos doing that because we carry our stress in our shoulders. You feel fatigue, the fact that we don't have great sleep, we get sick more frequently, and that is due to chronic stress. It is absolutely due to chronic stress, anxiety, and really that overwhelm. Then there's mental, Jay.
Well, there definitely is mental. I'll pop back to say my physical symptoms. Any bad habit I had, Nat, it was my weight gain was a big physical symptoms for me. So that was food was my thing. So if I had a bad habit, that's where it went to, is my physical symptoms.
Was it Little Debbie's? You could tell me.
It was Oreos. That's my go-to, guys, is the Oreos. And it's not just one or two, just bring me the party size bag. So let's talk about mental and cognitives. And any of my ladies out here, I always thought it was just my menopause brain, but it's not. Anytime that I'm really overwhelmed, and again, those are always for me the days I have to talk to the insurance company. I'm angry and I'm frustrated, first of all, that I have to even talk to the insurance company and fight for medicine and do these things that, fight for a doctor's appointment. But even more frustrating for me is that I found myself getting forgetful and I can't concentrate, and I'm just completely overwhelmed by the whole situation. And those are my physical symptoms. And I'm not going crazy. Don't think that you're going crazy. These are things that can be brought on by just your doubt and just the whole situation that you're in. One of the other big ones that we've come across is there is guilt and there can be resentment that goes along with a lot of caregiving. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you can be happy, as Natalie talks about in a lot of her training. The word "and" is very important. And that is, you can be happy to help and you can be resentful about it. Those two things can be positive, or it can be the same, rather. They can exist at the same time. But that guilt and resentment, you can self-neglect, you can isolate, and you can withdraw from the people that you love and that you're around.
Well, and JJ was always in charge of guilt in our family. That was the standing joke, because I will say this, JJ, as the oldest, and I don't mean just chronologically, but JJ is the preferred caregiver for our mom. And I don't know how many of you guys, I'm the middle child, and then we have the baby. So I always like to joke that I am fourth in line favorite of my mom, because JJ is the preferred. Mom texted JJ 11 times yesterday. She called her 11 times within 3 minutes. And then Emily and I didn't get any phone calls. And so we were like, okay, well, she must have just wanted you. But I will say
that was a reluctant moment. Let me just toss that out to everybody. The reluctant moment of having a phone. So there you go now.
Exactly. So, I think it can be really, really hard. Guilt is a powerful thing, especially because when our dad passed, Jay was very much like, I feel like I have to do this. And she takes on a lot more responsibility and is not good at handing it off to us as sisters. And so we have to push her, which is why I say we are caregivers for the primary, depending on if you live with the person, you live close by, or if you're a long distance caregiver. JJ is a long distance caregiver, and my mom prefers her still. And that's okay. I don't care about that. I just want to make sure JJ has what she needs. I don't need to feel like all the feelings about my mom I'm not my preference. It's not about me. In this case, it really is not about me. So when you think about moving past yourself and how you're feeling along the physical and emotional and the mental side impact of caregiving on you, we move into how that ripple starts to go out and how it affects the employment side, your relationships and spiritual, you're moving out in that ripple effect. And so when you think about employment, JJ and I had two very distinct experiences. So I was the CEO of a healthcare company when Jason was sick. We moved to New York, and people thought my background of the Chrysler building on the 15th floor at Memorial Sloan Kettering was fake. And it was absolutely true. I was taking meetings at the same time while he was getting his stuff done, because honestly, again, this had to do with me. I kept working. Nobody forced me to. I chose to because it was the thing I was good at, because I really felt like I had no control anywhere else. But we know from an employment standpoint, I can tell you, we have absenteeism as a problem, but even though I was on those meetings, I wasn't fully present. And so that impacts employment for a lot of employees. And a lot of people don't, again, not have the same privilege that I did. I had a lot of leeway. When I think about, other individuals, their employers may not have caregiver benefits. If you're working and your employer has caregiver benefits, put their name in there, because they deserve recognition. I'm going to tell you right now, they deserve recognition to have caregiver benefits, because most companies do not. But a lot of people experience lost promotions. They have to reduce their job hours. I saw a couple of people note that they're part-time, and other people have to ultimately quit their job. Our youngest sister could not work because we could never get our home health company, respectfully, we could never use the respite that that was a part of our mom's benefit, because we couldn't get reliable staff to show up to even do respite. And so she was never able to go to work, and that definitely impacts you. Thank you, Pfizer Caregivers. Jay, talk about a little bit about your own employment.
So the reason why I took Mom, we brought her to North Carolina, right? That was probably the first place that she stayed in assisted living, was because I was self-employed. And I can't imagine if I had still been in the banking industry, being able to do it, because caregiving it's not a set hour type of job. There was, I was able to leave when I needed to. My employees were fantastic. If I couldn't come in at a certain time, if I needed to take a day off, I knew I wasn't going to lose my job. So as the business owner, but there was, the concern that I did have to, it was my business, so I had to make sure I took care of it. But I had a lot more freedom than anyone that that gets their paycheck from somebody else. And so I did have being my own boss, I did have it a little bit easier.
So as we transition into relationships, guys, think about your relationships. And again, I'm pretty sure 100% of the people on this is caregivers. Think about the strains that it's created on your relationship. So think family and friends. And friends includes your professional relationships. And so I think about, when I talk about Jason, because it was so close to me, we lost a lot of friends. I didn't lose friends. And I was actually closed off about telling the world, even though if you follow us on social media or even my own personal Facebook and LinkedIn, I tell everybody everything. But his cancer diagnosis was so personal, and I felt so vulnerable and open up. I felt like, what if we're judged? What if we do the wrong thing? So we never actually formally told the world. We told about 100 of our friends. We used the Caring Bridge app to keep everybody updated. I'm a huge fan of Caring Bridge. If you don't know it, it's caringbridge.org, and it's a great place. It's secretly therapeutic because it's journaling. You're writing updates, but ultimately you end up writing about the things that are impacting you. So it's very therapeutic. But my husband lost a lot of his friends because they didn't know how to talk to him, and they felt uncomfortable. And so it is not uncommon to have people that are in your life at the beginning exit maybe during the middle. And when you end caregiving, and we talked about that in last night's session about after caregiving ends, and I'm going to argue it doesn't really end. It still ebbs. There's so much ebb and flow, especially if you're a survivor. My caregiving still ebbs and flows with Jason's needs, depending on when we go to the doctor. Today has been fine. Tomorrow it could be I flip my hat on and put my caregiver hat back on. And so it just depends on how he feels. And so, but I changed, he changed. And with that change, sometimes our relationships change, and that's okay. The other thing that we'll talk about too is the spiritual piece of it. For us, we leaned in. And for others, but the part of leaning in was really hard because it was 2022 when he got diagnosed, and we couldn't go to church. That was where we went, our house of worship. We went to church. Well, we couldn't risk him getting COVID. And so when you feel cut off, if that is a resource to you, rather, it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not, what is your belief and gives you hope? What helps you feel that? And when you feel like you can't access that, that can also result in feelings of isolation and loneliness. And it takes you down a really bad path if you're not careful. Any other thoughts on that, Jay?
You hit it. I will say about the relationship, especially because a big thing now with, and maybe a lot of us talking and listening here, is for us sandwich caregivers. And that was me. Because of course you're married, you may have kids or just other responsibilities. And I know times when I needed to be taking care of mom, or I felt like I did. It was a difficult time on my relationship with my husband, wanting to be with my stepkids. You don't know where to be is there a right place to be? Are you in the wrong place? Time is really limited. And that's another strain on relationships that you really have to, you've got to take care of your own relationships as well. There's a lot, Natalie, you got to take care of. So that's another place you got to watch. So,
and before we go into the next slide, there's one other piece. See, she really failed on that. Okay, good job, Jay. You're doing a really good job. Before we jump into that, we didn't have this on this slide. It was on another slide, that another deck that we have, but I want to make sure that we also hit financial. And I apologize for neglecting that, but caregiving has a significant financial impact on you. And again, it goes kind of that lost promotions, loss of job, you lose income. And women we're tick more. Caregivers, females are touched more than males, but our male counterparts, like our bestie Carlos, he's a part of the 40+% of males that are actually serving as caregivers, unpaid caregivers. And so you can absolutely impact your income. We were very fortunate because we had savings, but there's so many people that will run through their own savings to pay for someone else's care, typically their parents. JJ and I supplement our mom's care because unfortunately where she's, the skilled nursing facility, again, they have the same lack of staffing. And honestly, I feel like they're very similar. It doesn't matter whether you pay $20,000 a month or, whatever $1,000 a month. It's just not the same level. And so we actually pay to supplement our mom's care to make sure, her teeth are brushed or she gets a bath. And these are the things just because you're not caring directly for the person and they're maybe in a skilled nursing facility, doesn't mean you do not have caregiving responsibilities. And trust me, JJ knows that especially.
Are you ready, Natalie?
Yeah.
I'm going to the next slide.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. The bed pads, all that. It is totally difficult. The financial strain. Just FYI, Caucasians, about AARP says if you are Caucasian, you're spending about $7,200 a year, which I think is very respectfully laughable and similar because we're spending way more than that. But our Black and brown friends, they actually spend more than Caucasians, and that's because of area for a number of reasons. AARP is great for statistics and resources as well. Jay?
Let's talk about finding balance. And that girl on the bottom, I've never been able to do that, what that girl does on the bottom. I mean,
I'm not sure. I don't know if I have enough upper body strength for that, Jay.
No, it's not going to happen. So the only thing I can find balance is maybe laying down. So finding balance. And what does balance look like? Now, Natalie and I will both probably tell you the word self-care drives us insane. We hate that word.
Like a four-letter word.
Oh, they're like, oh, you need to do some self-care. I'm like, dude, if I had time to, like, I don't know, get a massage or something like that, I would be, I don't even like that word. But what I do like is that the definition of that word is deliberate and purposeful actions that individuals take to promote their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. So if I think about, okay, I need to take care of myself, I need to find my balance, but it's a deliberate action that I have to take. And that makes sense to me. That's not a beautiful fluff, go to the spa sort of thing. And there are a lot of different things. We've got these handouts are available, and we've got a lot of resources that we'll be able to send to you guys. There's a lot of things that you can do. I'm not going to read this to you guys, but it's about thinking about personal interest. It's about respite care, is having somebody to come in and help. And that's not somebody even that that's not a healthcare provider, but that is a friend, that is a neighbor, for you to be able to say, if you could just give me an hour and let me just go sit in my car, let me go to Walgreens, let me do something. Any amount of respite care is a good amount of respite care. Taking care of yourself, communicating with your loved ones, taking time to talk to them, setting boundaries. Natalie, I'm touching on setting boundaries because that's a big one. You've got to set boundaries.
She sets boundaries with me. Like, she totally screens me, guys. I mean, I may want to talk about all kinds of things, and she's like, nope, this is my time. I'm going to dinner. I'm not taking any calls. And I find that highly annoying, but I try to respect it.
So that is really important. And it's important even for the person that you care for. And that's,
Absolutely.
of course, when they have those, when they have the ability to have that full understanding. Gotta tell you, sometimes those people you care for can take advantage of you. They can do a lot of stuff on their own, so you gotta set boundaries when you know they fully understand that they're taking advantage of you. And same thing when you reach your limits, you have to be able to say, no, I can't do that. And many times I know for a lot of you all, a lot of us, we don't have someone to pass it off on, to say, okay, well, you need to wash the dishes or you need to do this. But you have to recognize within yourself that, man, I'm about to step over the line where I don't know if there's a return from this or not. You do have to set that boundary. And then Nat, you always touch on remembering a relationship and how important that is.
Yeah, you have to remember that it was so long, I never felt like a wife for so many months. And even after post-treatment, I'm going to tell you, I felt it was probably a good 8 months before my husband and I really found that relationship back. And it wasn't the same as it was before, but it's something that we work on. It's because we're different. We're different people. And for those of you who have been married for a long time, you know that you change as we get older. And so why wouldn't we change after a significant event? And so I think it's really important to remember, yeah, I'm your caregiver, but also remembering I am your wife or I'm your daughter. And I think that's so important. So when we talk about strategies, we want to give you guys some strategies, and we're going to have tons and tons of tips here. But strategies to survive and thrive, there's going to be way more than this when we send this out to you guys. I'm going to tell you as a person who's a mental health provider, I'm going to tell you, seek support. That can be clinical support, that can be non-clinical support. And so in our training a couple of weeks ago, we talked about, when should you see a clinician? And there's a lot of stigma around mental health, friends. And so there is nothing wrong with asking for help, but it really comes down to when you feel like the support that's on a non-clinical level, which looks like maybe you're in a Facebook group, maybe you're in a local group that's in person, maybe you're talking to friends and family, and it's just not meeting your need, and those symptoms, those thoughts, feelings, and emotions continue to rise higher and higher. That's when you may say, I think I'm going to seek some professional help. You don't have to be in with a clinician the rest of your life. Well, you can ebb and flow as you need it. I think that's super important. There are things like mindfulness and relaxation techniques that you can do, which is great. And you got to love YouTube and the internet for those things, because you could put in mindfulness and it'd give you 1 million different types of things where you could think about it. Or even just taking a deep breath, taking a deep breath now and rolling those shoulders back down will feel so good. And allowing for all the emotions, allowing for the good and the bad to be coexisting. And I think that's really, really important. And so, but you've got to deal with the stress. You've got to deal with the guilt. When you push those things down, when you push the negative emotions deeper on the inside, oh, it's coming. It's only when is it going to explode? And there's only so much that your body can withstand. And that may come in the form of illness. It may come in the form of an outburst at anyone. Like people be like, whoa, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. And so you want to make sure that you are not a ticking time bomb on somebody by not dealing with the thoughts, feelings, and emotions. It's my favorite slide.
It is mine too,
Right
because
there.
sometimes I do feel a little frazzled. So this is one of our favorite parts
Love this
of
part.
some of the sessions. Yeah. So we want to talk about things. We want to ask you questions. So if you have 10 minutes, because sometimes 10 minutes is like a blessing. I
Put it
get
in the
10
chat.
minutes. You can go hide. Tell me, if you have 10 minutes, you know, you feel frazzled, you got 10 minutes, what would you do as
We're
a
gonna take 30
caregiver?
seconds because I'm making.
Put it in the
Thank you,
chat.
Denise. Put it in the chat because I'm looking at our time. I want to be mindful of our time for you guys. Put it in the chat. What would you do if you had 10 minutes? Oh, Mike, I like that. You're a fast reader. I like that. You know, they always say to read for 15 minutes a day. It's really good and therapeutic. Anybody else? Oh, sit and drink a cup of coffee. It's almost like where you're just to yourself. Let's go to the next slide and let's give some ideas of what some people said, Jay.
I love these.
Oh, I do love some deep breathing. I always thought breathing sounded stupid. Like when people be like, why don't you take some deep breaths? And you're like, I'm already breathing. I'm going to slap you for that. The reality is it's intentional. It's intentionality. I do love a nap. A micro nap is totally real. Micro nap, 10 to 15 minutes. Those are my favorite. Stretching. I'm going to tell you right now, feels really good. If anybody needs to stretch, do it. Visualization. When we talk about visualization, where would you see yourself? Where is a place that is calming that you like? Can you visualize being at the beach right now? Because I'm visualizing, I know Carrie Alberts is on here and I'm visualizing our self-care cruise. I can smell the sunscreen going on. I can smell the coconut oil. I can hear the waves coming in and I hear them crashing in my ears. That's visualization. Where is your favorite place? And it may be quiet, it could be loud. It's what feels good to you. Oh, I can hear the ice cream machine. Can you hear it, Carrie? Just going down. I can feel the rhythm. Listening to
I'm gonna be dancing. I would just need 10 minutes to dance.
Super therapeutic.
There you go. 10 minutes.
So this is the next one. Let's go to the next one.
Ready?
You guys look at that.
You win the lottery. You win the respite lottery and you get 3 to 4 hours.
3 to 4 hours, people.
What do you do in 3 to 4 hours? If you get home health care comes in, you got a neighbor, it's like, I'm going to give you 3 to 4 hours off. What do you do?
Carrie's going to continue to nap, apparently.
Yes. What about everybody else?
Did you feel there? I love that. I love a nap, man. I'm a nap person. Movie.
So I love a movie.
Our sister loves a movie. Loves a movie. Go for a walk. Time with friends. That is a bucket filler as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see what some of our friends. So JJ and I did a keynote with our friends at the New River Valley here in Virginia, and we had so many. So one of my favorites that was done, tell what it was, because I know you know what it was.
This lady, she actually was the lady we called on to give it aloud, and her favorite thing to do was to go get her car washed. To sit in the car while it went through the car wash was her favorite thing to do when she got a couple hours away.
It was totally magical. Like she was like, I just wanted the car wash and I'm just quiet and I hear the noise.
I just want to sit in the car
so
wash.
satisfying. And then your car's clean and everything's clean and no one expects anything because the car wash is doing all the work. I mean, it is so symbolic. And we thought, we love you.
Yeah. And I think that she won like the $30 gift card and she was going to the car wash. That was her prize.
It was our favorite thing. We're like, if we'd have known. So, you know, I think it's so important. So let's talk about Jay. I like a concert too. Music, so therapeutic. We're going to talk about support for everybody. And this is so important. I'm going to go through and hit high level stuff here, guys. But I'm going to encourage you, as if there are things that you're like, ooh, hit on this, or here's a resource, I want you to start throwing it in the chat, because I know we got about 10 minutes left. I want you to throw resources in as well, because we're going to talk about them. But government entities, guys, I'm going to tell you, I've worked for the government before. There are but depending on your state and how your state, because like we have Department of Social Services, but in another state, it's Department of Human Services. Depending on the state, go to your state agencies and take a look to see, because there are programs like the Lifespan Respite Grant Program that gives caregivers $600 a year, up to $600 a year to pay for respite. That was just reapproved, reauthorized by Congress, and don't anticipate that getting installed. And so, guys, I think that's really important to use that. Hilarity for Charity, thank you, Carlos, for putting that in there. They have online caregiver support groups as well as some resource for respite. And so that's why we love us some Hilarity for Charity. Those are, if you think about the government entities, there's a lot of programs. Don't just think of like social services. Think about aging and rehabilitation. Think about the health departments. Think about then you go into your nonprofits, and there are a lot of groups. So I'm going to skip down to where it says search engines for 101. When you think about search engines, you could do, if you think about, there's Unite Us, there is Find Help. These are great, because I'm going to tell you, Google is what we call Satan's playground. And so Find Help, Unite Us, 211. 211 is the national non-emergency health and human services line. You can look up for those things. Look for organizations who support caregivers. Again, Hilarity for Charity is a great one. We've got Lorenzo's House, another favorite. Actually, our friend over, Patty, is over there presenting there right now. And then you've got Elizabeth Dole Foundation. You got all kinds, AARP. I throw them all out there. We have a resource list we're going to give you with all these names, so you don't have to worry about jotting down. When we talk about trainings, the training that we just did was a great one. So there are lots of fantastic trainings that are out there and that are on YouTube. I'm going to tell you, just because the training's over, go back to the YouTube channels and look for those caregiver type of trainings in those search engines. Online groups, love Caregiver Action Network. There's a Caregiver Action Network is a great one that has an 800 number that can provide support. So if you're not feeling like I'm in the search mood, you can be in the phone call mood. And so you can absolutely get there, or utilize, again, I'd say AARP a lot, but they've got, I think, almost 20,000 people in their caregiver group for AARP, and people will throw out questions, a great resource. You also have technology apps. Jay, who are some of our favorite tech apps? We got, who are some of our faves?
You asked me that, and I'm like, hold on a minute. We've got My Care Friend, My Care Pal. We have CareLink 360. So that is one of the apps. They actually are a piece of equipment as well.
They're pretty cool.
They're a device. You already mentioned Caring Bridge. They also have an app where you can use that for journaling. There's all kinds of new communication devices, and you actually can just go out and put conversation or medical information in your app, just questions, and it'll allow you to communicate almost like Facebook with family members.
Absolutely. And of course, we're always going to say podcasts are another resource, newsletters. I mean, we have the Confessions podcast, but we've got our friends, Carrie Alberts, our friend Dementia Darling. I'm sure most of you guys know her. She has, we did a sleep science podcast the other day talking about dementia and how lack of sleep can impact those with dementia and impacts their caregivers. You've got Nicole Will with Will Gather. You've got Elizabeth with Happy Healthy Caregiver. Lots of great podcasts. Again, every one of these are on our resource list. And the reason that we have you guys just throwing out stuff in the chat, this is why I really appreciate you guys, because caregivers really are a great resource. And so we find these things, and then we're like, oh, did you not know about that? And so caregivers find out a lot from each other, which is why we said, Chat it up, people, because we do not know everything. We know a bunch, but when we all come together and bring our resources together, that's when we're a powerhouse. I like ask a friend or ask a stranger. That's totally me.
Absolutely.
I talk to everybody. You know what's fun, Jay, is people have been doing some poppin' resources the whole time.
I know. So this is the resource guide. You can, I'm not sure we'll have everybody's emails, but this can easily be found on our website, Nat. Just under the resource guide. There's lots of information on there. So I think it says 8 pages, but I think it's longer now than 8
It's
pages.
actually longer than I'm gonna just put in you know what, we'll put in the chat the confessions website.
Yeah, perfect.
And so guys, keep putting these in here. I know we got about 4 minutes left and they're gonna push you over, but we want to open this up for any questions that you guys have. If you want to come off mic, come off mic. Oh look, there's our stuff. I don't even have to tell you. Good job, Jay.
You're welcome.
Look there. I'm going to put it in the chat just so if you wanted to copy and paste. Guys, anybody got questions that they'd love to, burning questions you'd love to ask us?
Bernie. It's a quiet group.
Oh my God, it's really quiet. Definitely quiet.
I know.
I know. I feel like Alex Trebek. I feel like do, 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 do. And you know, if you don't have questions, that's okay, because I know, do you have the Powerball? Hell yes, Jennifer. I am on that. I have yesterday's Powerball numbers. That's all I've got for you though. Sorry. I have a treatment plan for cursing. I'm really trying to get better at it. JJ, so you see why JJ's in charge.
That's very true.
That is exactly right. But let me tell you, I am playing the lottery some days. People, it's over 500 million. I'm playing it.
Because you can't live on less than 500 million right now.
That's exactly right. When the government takes their taxes and with inflation, I mean, whew, you know, I remember when $1 million used to be a lot.
I know. Well, no, you know, everybody, like Natalie said, this is all the ways you can get in contact with us. Shoot us an email if you do have any questions. We'd love for you to listen to our podcast.
Want the slides?
But I think, yeah, but I think the big thing that she and I would always say, and this is kind of the theme on our podcast, is, you know, we want to relate, we want to educate, we want to inspire people, but we love laughter. That's probably one of our biggest things, and that's what helps us get through. But the other thing is, for all caregivers, is just to know that you're not alone, and that is a key component. And if you feel like you're alone, just reach out to us. If Carrie's still on here, reach out to Carrie, because you're not, and it's hard to do alone. So just kind of open yourself up and say, all right, I need to get a friend. I need to call a friend, and somebody's going to be there to help you.
And caregiving's messy. Do it messy.
Hot mess.
Don't let perfect be the enemy of good, guys.
Exactly.
Do it messy. That's the answer. Do it messy and give yourself grace. And I'm going to tell you today, you guys are doing an amazing job caregiving. You're doing a great job. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate you. And thank you to Hilarity for Charity for inviting these crazy sisters. We are privileged to get to talk to you, and we hope to see you around. Thanks, everybody. Oh, I love it. Thank you. Oh, look, all the love. Oh, immediately all love. I can be bought with love texts, love chats.
That's true. That's true. It's Valentine's, you know.
I didn't even sing.
Oh, yeah, I did. I'm going to sing. I was going to sing. I just called to say I love you.
Oh, well, you can go ahead.
I just called to say, but I don't sing. You usually sing.
To say
I love you.
Dun, dun,
I'll call
dun,
you tonight and sing for you.
That would be wonderful.
I know you'd appreciate that.
All right,
they're only
guys.
going to give us a few more minutes. There you go.
I know. Enjoy the rest of the conference. We will see you next time.